Hello and welcome to another episode of Altcoin Thursday. I'm here with the Duck. As always, the show is brought to you by Woo. Links available in the description below. There have been some really good changes recently on the platform. They've got their RWA listings, and you can invest in treasuries if you're a Don type of crypto doomer boomer, which is quite nice. And then finally, they've made material improvements to their fiat on and off ramping, which has been a pain point for some time. But with a new integration, that whole process is smoother. We'll talk about those things more on Casual Friday. But before the market disappears, we want to talk about altcoins. And just to give some context to this show, I messaged Don in the morning saying, Altcoin Thursday today? He said, yes, sir. And I replied, anything to add to the watch list? And then his response was, I think it speaks for itself, really. I'll just read it out verbatim. I hate crypto, I hate these coins, I don't watch anything, and my interest goes as far as ETH and only goes to LTC if I really stretch it. Crying emoji. To which I said, great, thank you very much. And he replied, my pleasure, I'm legit useless. So Don, given your outlook on altcoins, the crypto industry, and life, where do you find the audacity to fucking sit here and make people watch an altcoin show? Like, how do you reconcile that in your mind?
They can just close the video. I'm not forcing anyone to watch anything.
How serious is that cluster of comments?
Nah, I mean, it obviously a little bit of a joke, but
right.
This cycle in particular is a very soulless one, I would say, just because everyone's just kind of given up. I feel like the projects have given up. The meme coins won. That's apparently the only use case investors care about, like having a meme coin, which makes it really hard to kind of find motivation to actually just look around, because the only thing that's actually going to do well, at least right now, and that might change, but for now there's no signs of it. The only thing that really matters is having a good meme. And as someone that's been in the space for long enough and it doesn't really care too much about trading the memes, I mean, just it's a little bit of like a sad state of affairs, I would say. When you see like projects that might not be decent, but at least try, be completely useless price action wise, and then you see like the 10th meme coin of a cat or a dog pull in like 20-30% a day, you're like, this is just kind of shit. But that's kind of how it is now. And yeah, so it's a little bit of a joke, but a little bit of seriousness in it too.
How much of that do you think is influenced by your specific boomerism? You know, having been here since, 2013 technically, 2017 as far as very actively trading, having seen so many metas and rotations, because that just sounds like old man yells at cloud type of thing, right?
But
the natural rebuttal would be some version of, well, these things are so volatile, you're a trader, you shouldn't care about what the token claims to do or is or does or whatever. It's never mattered in crypto. It's just a new form of volatility and a shift in sort of the attention spans. Why are you as a trader not invested in this stuff, at least from a dominating your attention span type of thing? Why are you so attached to fucking Litecoin and the old boomer stuff? What is it about meme coins that makes them so reprehensible to you?
I'm actually not that attached to any of it. The reason why I'm kind of like saddened by the whole thing is because, I mean, when you think back, we had at least had a little bit of hope that this would lead to something, right? Like the whole crypto thing would lead to something. And with every passing years, it just seems further and further from the truth. And then you cannot kind of meme yourself into, oh, I'm doing something, like I'm at the frontier of something that is going to push society forward. And you're like, I'm at the frontier of where society is going to lose most of their money. And having that in opposed to like a idealistic kind of backdrop makes it less pleasurable to just be involved, I would say, at least for me. But trading wise, I mean, meme coins doesn't really get much better than that trading wise, right?
I agree.
So it's kind of like, if you're just here for trading, I think there's nothing to complain about. If you're here to kind of like see the world change for the better a little bit, I think there's a lot of things to complain about. And it seems like crypto is going backwards, not forwards. And then a lot of people will mention like this and that project and like this and that AI coin, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is exactly what's fucked with this industry. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
I mean it's all
when
profit maxi, right?
yeah,
That's it. There's nothing else. It used to be a balance, I don't know, between like profit maxi, early stage tech innovation type of stuff, some in between trader of large cap type of things, you know. And there was somewhat of a more even distribution, but now it seems just like it's pure profit maxi, and you're an idiot if you care about anything else. Which is like, again, if you're like a pure trader, first few years trading type of thing, or even down the line, if you're just like a profit maxi, irrespective of your history, then that's great, because then the amount of FA you have to do has gone from like 1 basis point to 0 or negative if it could go that way. But yeah, if you actually have any type of ideological / philosophical attachment, you're probably not feeling too great, unless you're one of those VCs that's coping really hard now and writing like 5,000 word treatises on why meme coins are, you know, some change in social dynamic, gamification, whatever type of nonsense. I think at that point you're really deluding yourself.
oh yeah, the VCs went from hating on meme coins because they didn't get an early allocation
Yes.
to actually just being like, ah, fuck it, we punt, and saying this is a change in society.
Yeah.
Like the VC space as a whole is exactly the same, really. Like it's just sad to see on multiple levels where people are just like, you can tell that they basically like they're profit maxis in a way, but they're kind of trying to make it so like make it look like they're not. And I think that's the worst. Like the meme coin guys that are like, fuck it. Like, what the fuck are you crying about? This is meme coin season. Let's fucking go. I'm getting rich. Like, I can respect that. The whole, like, I'm a VC and this is why this is changing the world. Like, why meme coins are changing the world. There's zero respect for me, for these people in me. Like, I think it's just a little bit scummy. Everyone knows that this is basically just an attempt to pump and dump something.
And then
And
give it intellectual cover, you know.
exactly, and it's disgusting, you know. Like at least be honest and say like, hey, I'm buying this because I think I can dump it on someone dumber higher up.
Yeah.
At least do that, and I think a lot of crypto people do it. The VCs a little bit less so. Every time they buy something, they have to cover it in roses, but it's fit underneath.
I agree. I also think a lot of the reactionary type of VCs who are like, "Oh, this is bad for our industry and makes us look bad," etc. They've just seen a lot of their edge and so-called alpha dissipate, which was used to be just like private round connections, low valuation type of stuff. And now that some of that has been, I guess, democratized in one form or another, and all people realize that, you know, have sort of recognized this market for what it is and just jumped over all of that shit straight to, I guess, quote unquote, fair launch meme coins. None of them are, but you know what I mean, right? Sort of a,
Yep.
without all the added complexity. That's directly taking from the VC pie and from the mechanisms that they've used to extract. And now that their edge has sort of deteriorated or the market's moved elsewhere, it's just a sort of angry reactionary response that there isn't as much free money for them to dump tokens on people's heads anymore.
Which is also hilarious. And I mean, that's like, and this is kind of what saddens me so much is that you have like no matter where you look, right? You have scummy people just trying to extract money from dumber people, including myself, right? This is exactly my job.
Yeah.
But if you the moment you kind of realize that you're playing like a zero sum game of sorts, and I would say like the meme coins are very much that, if not even worse. Because you have the people that launch it basically extracting money on top of it all. It kind of gets this disgusting undertone, and when you have like belief that there is value to it at some level, some form, somewhere, it makes it less into like a gambling kind of extracting money from other people in the market, and more so like it's just a net good for the world. And I think that argument, like making that argument for anything other than maybe Bitcoin, but even on Bitcoin, I'm not entirely sure, it's very hard, right? Like that any of this crypto stuff is actually doing net positive in the world. I wouldn't want to sign that because there's too much money extracted. There is obviously some good use cases and some good things that are done with crypto, but by and large, I would say like the money extracted out of it for like nefarious kind of
North
things.
Korean missiles.
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's more like just when you add everything up, I'm pretty sure like that the this scum is extracting more money than crypto is actually creating, and then just normal people just lose a bunch of money, which is sad to think about. It might change. It's an early technology, but with every passing year, and this is why my message was so negative. With every passing year, I lose a little bit more hope, and this one is an especially bad cycle, I think, in that regard.
If you're an ideologue, for a trader, it's been fun. At
Yes.
least the low cap for an in the trenches type of person, I don't think there's been a better cycle.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not saying trading wise it's been a
for
bad
sure.
cycle. I mean, I'm very happy with my performance, even, and I didn't catch half of it. So like I'm very, very satisfied with the trading aspect of it. I'm just like, from the tiny bit of ideology that I still have or had for crypto, I think that's kind of going down the drain as we speak.
Yeah, well, I don't know what you think about this. I was speaking to one of my friends whom I got into crypto. It was Wasi Lawyer, actually. We were friends before he got into crypto, and I've ruined his life now. But I was saying that being an unethical crypto influencer must be one of the highest paying jobs in the world, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no way it isn't. You see these accounts with 2, 3, 4, 500,000 followers, just being like, here are my top 10 whatever AI fucking gems, pre-sale, launch, I'm partnered with whatever, and then it's just free money over and over and over again for basically no work. And the thing is, we've now reached this saturation point in the KOL meta or whatever, that everyone has done so much shit that the likelihood that you get called out for it, at least while the times are good, or that there's any self-policing, or it's like, hey, this guy's really shifted his tone, or whatever, like, no one gives a shit, right? It's like a free-for-all. It's like the purge, essentially. Like, there are no rules, no laws, and for 24 hours, or, whatever number of months, if you scale it to crypto, you can just do whatever the fuck you want, I do think the corollary of that is that, as soon as the market goes down and people start posting those threads and pocket watching and fucking screenshots and the trading view timestamp as to when they were shilling, I think that's going to be sort of that's going to be a huge part of this cycle, because the sort of lifespan of these meme coins has been so fucking short, and the people who are really, really into them are trying to talk about 10, 15, 20 tokens at a time usually, or at least in a very short period of time. And we're already seeing some of it, but I think the classic blowback part of the cycle, where it's like, oh, but you were shilling this, and here's where you shilled that, and look at the chart now, etc. If you're one of those sleuths / engagement baiters, you have unlimited ammo from this cycle for this type of stuff, because it's been such a free for all, which will at least be fun to look at on Twitter.
Yeah, the problem is when everyone does it, like, you can call people out, but it's like, yeah, but everyone's doing it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's not something special when you now call someone out for having shilled, like, value this vapor.
Yes.
Like, that had like 10K liquidity when you started shilling it. Because everyone is doing it. So it's just kind of like, yeah, why attack this person if the other 150 also do it? Like, it's not going to get too much attention, I think, sadly.
Yes.
But it is what it is. I mean, it's just how the space developed, and this is just where the money is now, which is very wild. Like, the money went from basically like people trying to find something that is or might sound interesting. People always fell for the scams, right? People always fell for like the wild stuff, the sounds smart but actually isn't. For example, like, I mean, I'm not saying any examples, but like ADA had like a massive run up just randomly. Why is that? It sounds very smart, right?
The buyers were more aggressive than sellers, Don.
Yeah. Is it actually smart? I don't know. I'm not smart enough to say. And I don't have no lawyer on standby.
Good.
But like, you get what I'm saying? Like, this always existed, right? And I mean, it's fair enough, right? You try to buy something that sounds smart because you're like, maybe this will do something. Nowadays, it's not. You're not trying to buy something that sounds smart. You're trying something.
It's almost the opposite.
Yeah, you're trying to buy the dumbest shit possible because you're like, oh, everyone's fucking dumb in this market. I need to dumb it down. And I think that meta hopefully comes to an end with this cycle. And going into next, we actually have only a few dumb coins and a few more realistic, kind of smart ones. But I don't know.
All the coins are dumb, become black pilled.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of true. I mean, at the end of the day, like that's been the camp that I've been in, right?
Yeah.
Like that's always been the camp where I'm like,
You should be for all of this, Don, realistically.
yes, but for me, this is a little bit too extreme now. Like,
Oh, you reap what you sow.
yeah, I mean, I always was like, this shit is dumb as fuck. But now I'm like, it's actually too dumb for me.
Oh my god.
It's actually going down too fast. But it
Yeah.
is what it is.
Because
Yeah.
that's sort of the, I guess, the mitigating argument to some extent, being like, hey, at least, yes, it's an extreme version of correcting for what was previously this meta of, oh, that there are smart coins and there are dumb coins and there are coins that will sort of not follow the rest of the market and they're uncorrelated and all this other stuff. This has been a nice almost reality check that, hey, all of this is dog shit, the VCs are dog shit, nothing means anything, it's just price, momentum, liquidity. So if you didn't believe in that message previously and were a fundamentals guy, nothing's going to wake you up from your complacent slumber like this fucking cycle, right? So
Yeah.
at least there's that element to it. But I think naturally these things like overcorrect in both directions. And so we went from the low, the high FDV, low float, wannabe VC fucking nonsense. Where and also even like the DeFi 1.0 meta was like pretty damn VC dominant outside of Uni and some of the airdrop stuff. I feel like this is essentially a knee-jerk correction, and yes, overcorrection, but to that kind of insidery, cabal-y type of trading, to now where people are like, okay, well, if this is the game you're going to play where it's still all dog shit, you're just packaging it up, and because you have insider access, you're going to sell it to me, let's go to the other extreme where, the deal flow is democratized, everyone is a fucking KOL, everyone is doing pre-seed rounds, no one cares about the fundamentals, it's all about memes, and it's just, the pendulum has swung to the other side. I'm just wondering where it ends up.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like once all is said and done, right, this cycle's over, and that can be in a year from now, it can be whenever, right?
Yesterday.
Yeah, we all know, right? And this is the very, very big difference to previous cycles. We all know that this shit is worthless, right? Like the fucking bonk, Shiba, with like all of it is fucking worthless, right? Like it's not like this is anything that should have any value or will have any value down the line. It just has some now because people are speculating, right? And in previous cycles, people actually believed that there was value that they were holding. And that's going to be an interesting shift, I think, because you had backholders back in the day, and I don't think you would necessarily get the same kind of backholders again with this current meta. I'm curious to see how that's going to play out, because I think you have to be really fucking dumb to believe that your meme coin has intrinsic value beyond a cycle, right? Like it has, yes, it does, and it has value during the cycle, but the moment the cycle ends, going into the next one, there's a very, very good chance it's going to go down 99%. And there's a good chance that it's not going to be a thing next cycle, which is very, very different from what we had in the past, in my opinion. So we'll see. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
I mean, even the different in the past argument sort of depends on what you look at, right? So, for example, it's very much been the case that on average, even altcoins that don't fully die and come back in subsequent cycles underperform massively relative to BTC and ETH type of thing.
Yeah.
So it almost seems like even with the big changes from so-called legitimate but not really legitimate projects to straight up meme coins, a really sort of safe portfolio, well, a reasonably risk-adjusted portfolio construction meta has been for your long-term bets to be like BTC and ETH. And then once you switch from that, you become maximally cynical, profit maxi. All of this stuff is here for one cycle. It's all going to go to zero, and it's just flows, liquidity, momentum, and nothing else matters. I'm not holding any of this shit if it's not BTC or ETH. And I think that framework has just kind of been good all around, and I don't see a particularly strong reason for that to change. Or at the very least, you're going to have to make a really strong argument to sort of rebut the to make an argument for like a multi-cycle thesis, right? That this outperformed, it's going to outperform again, and sort of carve its way into the echelon of BTC and ETH. It seems like the more conservative, at the moment, more evidence-based thing to do is to have your sort of untouchables of BTC and ETH, and then everything else you treat like the piece of shit that it is.
Yeah.
Now that we've lost all of our viewers, Don, should we look at some charts?
Yes, we should.
We fucking always turn this into a casual Friday episode. I think it's because we just have so much chemistry naturally. You know, we just get lost in conversation.
Probably.
Did you see one of the comments on Casual Friday
Dude,
being like, "Are these the LGBT show?" Or like, "These two guys are flirting the entire time." It's like,
I'm like, where's this coming from?
I know.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Make it into whatever you want.
Make it exactly. We welcome everyone on this show, kind of. Also, BTC has gone down for unless the weekly gets rescued, 4 weeks in a row.
Oh yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
But that's for tomorrow's show. On the altcoin front, I guess we can start with ETH BTC and spend exactly 1 minute on it because it just keeps breaking down. And yeah, I don't know. I don't care, Don. I don't give a shit.
Just open the ETH BTC monthly chart and then draw a line from the 1st of June 2021 wick. That's the range low.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah.
And you have the picture really. I think like technically this is a bearish retest. It was also a bearish retest into that diagonal that we used to like always talk about. On the show, like it broke down, bearishly retested that, and now it's on the way to the next support. I would say, like, it's not a good looking chart. The one thing that I will say is that it looks a lot better than a lot of the other Bitcoin pairs rounds. It's also not good looking. So
sure, it looks less shit than a bunch of dog shit, to use technical terms. Is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yes.
Fantastic. ETH itself, you had the 2K, 3K, 4K meme.
Yeah.
We seem to be fighting for our lives at 3K at the moment. I think the bounce in its current form is pretty weak all around, which is just a bit sort of underwhelming. I don't know if you have any technical stuff or anything else to add on this. It seems like we've already spent like 2 weeks, maybe even 3, depending on how you count, kind of wicking at 3K. The reaction thus far has been shitty. I think from just a trading point of view, if you try to buy close to 3 or sub 3K with the tight invalidation and you eat shit on that trade, that shouldn't keep you up at night in general. It's just one of those spots, you know. But generally speaking, I'm not a huge fan of this at its current form. For me, this is the type of area where you're either getting like really good, really greedy entries, and then you could rationally justify kind of either holding it or giving it enough space to move and trading it in the short to medium term. But this isn't one of those where I'm like, oh shit, this is like super discounted and a great level, etc. Because we've spent, look how much fucking time we've spent here.
Yeah, too much.
Too long, I think. So again, from just like a short to medium term trader point of view, it's still a support at the end of the day, right? If you get a good entry there, you give yourself the luxury of being able to see what happens next. And I think that's a really understated part of what a good entry kind of allows you to do if you're discretionary. Like if your entry's shit, you don't have you can't just sit around and find out, right? Because you're underwater almost immediately and you're like, oh fuck, well if I'm wrong on this, then trade management just becomes a bigger chore if your entry sucks. And you can't sort of allow yourself to look past your target or see what it does when it starts approaching your target, etc. You're basically immediately on edge from a trade management point of view if your entry is shit. But if your entry is really good, then you can actually assess and give yourself some breathing room, let the trade kind of play out. Even if you were targeting like a 1 hour, 4 hour resistance, if it looks really fucking good, or sellers come in and they don't get anything done, then you could let the trade, if you're advanced enough, again, morph into something else. But if your entry is shit, you can't afford that process. So that's why I'm kind of leaving that carve out to where if you have really good entries, you could hold a piece of it and maybe shit turns around. But unless you're getting really good greedy entries, I don't think 3K is like a super compelling trade idea at this point. What do you think of ETH?
Yeah, I agree. It's basically, it is support, but it's been spending too much time there and it's tested that support too many times. So I mean, technically it's still support and can still hold, but if you're buying it and you're wrong, it's kind of the risk of getting wicked out and taking a much larger loss than you would actually want to. Like you're gonna have some slippage, you're gonna have a shitty exit if you're wrong. Makes the trade a little bit less attractive to me.
Is this like
even
you
though it's
fudding the
at 40.
BTC range low again, Don? Are we
Oh yeah,
back? Are we so back?
we are. I mean, it's still the same. I'm still fudding. I also am still fudding the Bitcoin range.
Oh,
It's
that's what.
still the
Yeah,
same.
I can't wait for that episode tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, redemption arc. I was getting shit talked for a 2% pump. I cannot believe it.
I fudded the Schmiko top at, well, I say fudded. I did the classic British ramble, like, oh, well, we're kind of at the mid-range and it's boring and it's resistance and it's weekly, etc., etc. And, you know, I'm very quaint about it. But obviously the second I went down, I'm going to be like, I was so fucking bearish. I can't believe there was enough collateral from all my trading desks that I interface with to allow me to put on the size short that I've got at the moment, so on and so forth, you know.
Of course, as any good European will.
As any good European will do, yeah, for sure. So that stuff will cover. But on the ETH front, yeah, just same old, I think. 2, 3, 4, and TA-wise, I mean, we're back at 3 again. So make of that what you must. I still think if you're getting good entries around 3, you can trade around them. If you're not, then it's kind of, you know, fourth test, best test kind of isn't worth it. The altcoins that I had to pick, given your unconditional surrender in this endeavor, were based on either technical structure or like weekly, you know, 1-day performance type of thing, or just coins that are popular or that we've discussed previously on the show.
Dog coins.
Basically fucking dog coins. Bonk is one of them, Don. And honestly, unlike a lot of altcoins, this has potentially salvageable market structure. At least it's not as dog shit as some of the other ones. Like some of these other alts in this watch list. Yeah, literally dog shit. Some of these other ones just had their straight up crash, right? From like last week, and then barely recovered, and now they're getting stuffed again. And those, I think, unless you really love them or they really nuke, I wouldn't really spend much time looking at stuff that was weak on the way down and weak on the way up. You know, it's just not a particularly effective filter for your altcoin trading. The reason I've got Bonk here is because similar to many of these other instruments, at least it's giving you some sort of glance or preview of a failed breakdown, right? I'm looking specifically on the daily. I know the weekly chart you're going to FUD and say it's at resistance and whatever, go fuck yourself. But at least on the daily chart, which is one of the better time frames, there's a, you know, the 215, 216-ish level. That got straight up nuked when the market nuked, and then it recovered pretty well. Didn't really spend much time at the lows, and the candle from 2 days ago was pretty strong. So at the very least, you have some TA, some invalidation, and some, I guess, relative strength, if 1% up can be called that. What do you think of Bonk?
This is one of the ones where you can't, like, if you really want to be bullish, right? Like, this seems decent, and as long as it's holding, like 215, like you said, that is probably gonna maintain as long as the market stays up. I personally think that the market is gonna go down, so I would want to bet on it. But technically, it's like a false breakdown, and it's strong momentum, and it's a dog coin. So that's all that matters nowadays for any kind of possible upside.
Perfect analysis. I agree. Did you want to FUD the weekly time frame? Do you think there's a market structure or resistance-based argument to be made there, or is it a bit too compressed?
I think there is. You could make an argument for a lower high here very easily. The daily is quite good. The weekly is a little bit less good. Okay. But if my thesis on Bitcoin plays out, this is probably going to be a bearish retest in Bonk as well. But yeah, I like the daily better than the weekly. But the weekly has confluence with my Bitcoin analysis, which would make me pick it, as in like this is a bearish retest more so than like a reclaim. That said, the good thing about the reclaim idea is that it has a pretty straightforward invalidation. It's not that hard. Like if it goes anywhere below the daily candle of the 23rd of April, as in that last push up, there's a good chance this just literally goes down only from there. So you have a decent invalidation, and you can just be like, hey, I want to give the memes one more shot, and the market in general one more shot. And I think that's not the worst possible idea to have.
Yeah, it's like if I'm wrong about BTC and wrong about this, wrong about that, you know, that there's at least some way I can account for that or express that to you. and it's not super far from invalidation. At least, you know, if you're completely wrong about the market, and by you I mean like the trader articulating this view, and it fucking melts up, then yeah, I mean roughly from the daily open, the invalidation's like a 20% type of thing. But if you're arguing for like a melt up, you'd expect this thing to sort of make new highs, or at least even poking towards the previous highs is like 60% ish, 50, 60%. So, you know, 20% wide, 60% on the upside, suddenly the risk reward isn't terrible. And you can always use lower time frames to chop that down a little, make it tighter if you wish. So yeah, that's bonk. It's just one of the, at the end of the day, if you get Bitcoin wrong, you're most likely going to get fucked, right? So I don't think there's any getting around that. When it comes to altcoin trading. So that's just one of the realities of it, and that's why a lot of traders will just start with BTC, because you can have the perfect setup, and if you just get BTC significantly wrong, you'll eat shit. Especially if it's like hanging around the long consolidation, volatility is getting crushed, etc. I think all of that points towards the phenomenon you outlined earlier. That like, what is the cost of being wrong in terms of my like fill prices and other things? I think another thing that people do is they'll have a BTC bias. And then they'll take several positions in different altcoins to reflect that. And so you might sort of feel that your risk management is conservative, like, oh, you know, 2% on this setup, 2% here, 1% here, etc. But then if your BTC bias is wrong, plus you've got that context of a long consolidation and vols being crushed, if both of those things work against you, then all of those positions will eat shit at the same time. And all the fills on all of those positions will also be way worse. So suddenly you might think, you might have this sort of mental comfort blanket of 1-2% risk, it's fine. I watched the Cred video and it's his fault, he'll refund me. But then if you're wrong, suddenly all those things work against you at the same time. And that you can take quite a haircut on your portfolio, even if you feel like you're managing risk pretty well.
I think it's one of the harder things to do. Like when you have 5 or 6 positions going at the same time, like it fucks you so hard if you need to move fast. Like let's say even if it goes well and it spikes up, usually like more than one position of yours spike up. You're like, oh shit, I want to sell that spike. Until you've gone through all of the processes of kind of like looking at the price, looking at the chart, kind of making your decision. It's going to take quite a while for you to be able to react to it. And that's in a positive way, right? Like, let's say it goes the negative way. That's even harder to manage, because then when you're wrong, you start doubting, right? Like when you're right and you're like, oh yeah, I want to just have the best exit price here. It's one thing. And that's going to make it harder if you have a bunch of position going. But if you're wrong, you're gonna eat shit on, like you said, all of them, and then you're gonna be like, but what if I was just early? And then you start thinking like that, and then once you make the decision that, hey, I need to be reasonable here and actually close some of these, or like stop losses hit or whatever, you have a bunch more to manage, right? Like it's just so much more complicated. It's one of the things where I've had a few buys, like a few times where I had like really good buys on a couple coins, and then I had multiple positions going, and it goes really well, and you feel like a god, right? But most of the time, it just kind of fucked me over, where I'm like, I have positions in these 10 altcoins, and at the end of the day, usually I take a loss when I start kind of spreading out that far. Just random notes.
Mate, my limit is like 2 nowadays.
Yeah.
More than 2 positions. I'm like, well, what am I, some sort of fucking quant? I can't do this shit anymore. I'm too washed up. But yeah, I guess, you know, if you're looking in the altcoin landfill for things that don't look terrible, Bonk is one of them. The next one I've got on my list, and you were tweeting about this one, is BNB, actually.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of close to an all-time high, which is crazy.
It looks incredibly good.
Remember when Binance was going to get fully DOJ'd and they're insolvent, actually, and they're going to take us below 17K? That was fun. We don't know their liabilities, they screeched, in any case.
It's one of the best coins one of the best looking coins.
I was going to say, the FA side of you just came out, Don. It's one of the best coins. Are you a Binance angel by any chance? Just volunteering your free time to help people with their Palau KYC?
Oh, of course. What I do is side hustle.
I mean, it's not even a hustle. You don't get paid.
No, I didn't even know.
Yeah. Binance Angels are volunteers, which makes me that much more terrified of them.
Oh yeah. You have to be mentally ill for that, then. No?
Most likely. But maybe you get
Um,
like a free T-shirt or something, which is
oh, that's great.
yeah,
Running
that's
around
worth it.
as a billboard in real
It's
life.
just
It's
getting
great.
jumped in Latin America or something,
Yeah.
or more dangerously, North London.
No, it just looks good.
What's the
BNB
TA on this,
BTC.
Don?
I mean, BNB BTC looks insanely good. And
Wow, it broke out as well, huh?
yeah, and it reclaimed like 0.0075, if I
Yeah,
see it correctly. Like that breakout, like
gotcha.
was basically a reclaim. Ever since then, I've been like, oh, I actually really like the look of it. I really don't want to own BNB, because I don't just like I'm not the biggest fan of Binance as a whole. Um, but it's one of the best altcoins slash cryptos out there. Like it looks so good. And the same with BNB USD, right? Like it's back to the all-time high, which is very rare for altcoins that have gone
Mm-hmm.
through more than one cycle, right? Like everything else is just kind of like, even if you look at ETH's been like far away from the 5K all-time high. BNB is all the way back to the USD all-time high. So I think like generally on the USD pair, it's a little bit at resistance. It's at that range high, but it's the third time. It's a good chance that that breaks. But I really like the BNB BTC chart. Like that's just really good looking, and I think that just kind of looks like it wants to accelerate more. So if the crypto market stays up, I think, and if you don't want to buy complete and utter dog shit, I think that's one of the ones that just from a TA perspective looks the best.
No triple top or quadruple top.
Yeah, and I mean that's like when you have a good looking Bitcoin pair going into the obvious, like most obvious resistance on the USD pair. I usually like that, like when
Oh, alpha
the
leaked on.
yeah yeah when you have a little bit of like a ramp up on the BTC pair going for a little bit of momentum, especially right now as the market is kind of like shit. Everything's just been bleeding, and you see a little bit of a ramp up while no one's looking. That's kind of nice. So I don't hate on BNB from a TA perspective. I think, and I've gone through a little bit of a list of coins. It's not like I don't look at anything, and the only one that I could find that wasn't the meme coin was BNB. That actually looked good on a TA front.
I mean, to be fair, that's also because the rest of your watch list got delisted in 2018, or like 90% of it. So it's no wonder.
I actually went through the modern coins too,
Did
believe it
you?
or not.
Oh my
Yeah.
god. Well, you're not going to be shilling any 50k liquidity meme coins on this show,
Oh,
are you?
coming next.
Coming
Don
tomorrow.
Don so disillusioned he's joining the ranks.
That'd be so great. I think people would
Uh,
think you're hacked.
oh yeah, for good reason. It's not gonna
That's why you have
happen.
to do it on stream. Dogecoin, your $1 bet.
Yeah.
As cynical as you are, that's been one of the instruments that you've talked about. You also mentioned you had you nibbled at a bit of a position
Yeah.
last time we spoke. Do you have more fills? Has anything
No,
changed?
no. I get more fills at 0.1. Otherwise, on the way up. But
Oh, okay. It's like a proper discount on where we are
yeah,
right
yeah.
now.
I think if I'm right, and this is not a guarantee, and people always put too much weight on my opinion. I think I'm just a random duck on the internet. But
Yes.
if I'm right and Bitcoin goes down a little, like loses the 60K support, I think there's a good chance I get to buy at 0.1, and then I'm gonna give it a chance, like roll the dice on Doge as
Retard hedge.
yes, and as one of the less retard hedges out there, which might be bad. Maybe you want to go full retard for your retard hedge. I don't know, but Doge is a little bit more comfortable than the ones that other people have been chilling lately.
Sure.
To
Okay,
me,
that's nice. So I think
yeah.
a lot of your just as a I don't know zoomed out perspective. Um, in an ideal world, at least for your portfolio slash plan, BTC goes lower, but that gives you altcoin fills, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I
understood.
basically think a bunch of people bought altcoins, didn't really get like make too much money from them, even though Bitcoin went up a shitload, right? but they still made a little bit. And I think there's a chance that Bitcoin wipes out and a bunch of these altcoins where people have been getting fucked anyway actually go below or close to the cycle lows that they had, basically erasing the whole bull market for the people that held them. And I think a lot of people would capitulate in those circumstances. And I think at that point, you're not going to get like really, really good entries. Now, whether that's actually going to happen or not, I'm not entirely sure. It's happened in previous cycles before, but that doesn't mean it has to happen again. So that's kind of where I'm from, where I'm like, if that happens, it's going to be nice entries. And if I'm wrong on those entries, right, like let's say Dogecoin, for example, the 0.1 level, like that's very, very far from current price. So even if I'm wrong and the price just keeps on nuking, basically, I'm okay. Like it's not that, like when it nukes that much, usually you get in like a complacency bounce, even if you're wrong on the fills. So that's kind of what I'm betting on, like really good entries, or at least I get a complacency shoulder to get out.
Well, it's again the luxury of a good entry, right?
Yes.
Even if you're wrong, your bandwidth for being right is higher as well. Near is one I spoke about on Monday markets because it kind of looked similar in a reclaim structure type of way. I was looking again at the daily cluster around $6 one way or another. And, you know, it's obviously pulling back now, but I feel like similarly, if like, look, realistically, if BTC breaks
bonk,
down,
right? Bonk 2.0.
Bonk, yeah, it's basically Bonk 2.0. And I think a lot of these, the completely weak altcoins, the ones that aren't totally decimated, most of them look in one form or another similar to this, which is kind of the theme of Monday markets. The dog shit ones are just, they died and barely even bounced. The ones that have a bit of momentum and some buyers, they reclaim their range low, and then it's a question of can they fucking hold? I think realistically, if you're right about BTC and it breaks the range low and you don't FUD it for the 5th time in a row at the bottom,
wouldn't be the first time.
No, it'd be the 5th time. I think if that happens, then all these reclaims eat shit and get stuffed. Like they're just too close to the market, I think, to survive a BTC volatility expansion to the downside. So just to contextualize a lot of these failed breakdown setups, I think they only work if the floor on BTC holds.
Yeah.
So they're a good sort of hedge against that. Or if you think the floor will hold, they're a good way to express that. If you think the floor is going to break, but you want some exposure in case it doesn't, they're a good way to express that. But if your base case and or high conviction case is that the arse is going to fall out of BTC, I don't think you can hold those two beliefs simultaneously. That BTC is going to break, but I'll buy the failed breakdown reclaim on altcoins. I think that's a bad combination personally, because one invalidates the other. I think if BTC breaks, these reclaims will fail by definition. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. It's but I like it as some sort of hedge, right? Like let's say you're reducing the position size and you're like, I think there's a good chance that Bitcoin just kind of falls on its face, but I want to still have a little bit of exposure. I think, like you said, these are decent picks, and decent picks is a big compliment given how the altcoin landscape is right now.
No, for sure. This show just creates like retard hedge baskets, I guess. That's the business we're into. It's like, what if the market mega melts up? What is the most retarded shit you can buy? We talk about that. Then we're like, if Don just keeps FUDding the range low and it's actually adamantium BlackRock support that never breaks, what's a good way to hedge against that? I mean, there's a lot of utility in this show, clearly, Don. And you can leave a like on the video if you agree. Pepe.
Oh yeah.
You know, Don, if you actually followed up on your call when we first discussed it, maybe we wouldn't be doing a show 4 times a week. But here we are. This thing is, I think, again, it's like Bonk 3.0.
Yep.
It's the same fucking structure. Like this thing broke down from, I mean, I've got 630-ish as the range low cluster type of thing on the USD daily. Similar, I mean, exact same argument. Breakdown doesn't go anywhere. Strong move back above. That's your invalidation and a good Don FUDding the range low hedge type of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, the hardest part with these is the entry, though, right? I kind of talked about it on Monday markets as well. And thank you for all the comments on those if you watched that video, where I was like, when you get a reclaim set up, it's one thing it's quite easy to just say, oh, well, it's back above here, therefore it's bullish, right? That's not a difficult part of analysis. But in terms of executing on that idea, that gets quite tricky. Like, do you buy the pullback? Do you just buy the breakout blind? Do you buy the consolidation post breakout on lower timeframes? Do you do all/none of the above? Like, the execution part gets tricky. So if you're interested in some discussion of that, you can watch the Monday markets video. But I mean, do you have any color on how you like to treat these reclaim setups? I know in your case you have a very unhelpful answer, which is I try to buy them before they reclaim. And it's like, yeah, thanks.
I actually knew.
I fucking knew it.
But no, it depends is my answer, which is always shit.
Oh my god, what is the point of this show, man?
And the depend is like, let's say I was bullish on Bitcoin right now,
sure,
and I saw this reclaim, I would have tried to buy today, basically. Like on Pepe, it's very, very close to the range low-ish of like whatever, like 652 something. I think that's the range low. Like when you just look at the lows on the 19th of March on a closing basis, it's quite decent. It's close enough to that to just blind buy it. And I do like Pepe much more than the Solana meme coins. Like I think, just based on the fact that it's on ETH and it's been outperforming. It is on ETH, right? I'm not talking bullshit. I'm pretty sure it is. But,
yes.
Yeah, I like it much more. I think the time, and that is because I think the time of Solana versus ETH has come. Like ETH is the more solid bet in that regard, and that's why I prefer the meme coins on ETH over the ones on Solana. And this is basically the only one where you have a bunch of Solana ones. Like With has been going. Bonk is also on Solana, as far as I know. And then you have a bunch, basically, that get chilled by the same influences over and over and over again. Whereas Pepe is like one of the few ones that like has been doing well that you get on ETH. So still like Pepe more than most of the other meme coins. Like if I had to buy one, still Pepe. It's just, yeah, I think there's a good chance that Bitcoin goes down, so I wouldn't necessarily want to buy it now. But it's even better looking than Bonk and Nia is. I think like the structure itself is better. It's pretty much the same, but with more strength.
It's made more progress, basically, on post-failed breakdown. Also, that reminds me, we might sound like negative Nancy's on the show, especially towards the beginning, but there are some diamonds in the rough and good/funny stuff that comes out. So, Will Clemente on Twitter, who did a lot of on-chain stuff back in the day and just kind of as a trader, analyst, does market commentary. Yes. He posted like a really long fucking thread on the Zin meme coin, which was named after the actual nicotine product, Zin. And it was like so fucking detailed. Like it was a fun read. Unless you get the reality check of like, what the fuck am I reading? It's a thread about a meme coin. But if you avoid that, I was like, oh, well, this is cool. And he's pulling data on like Zin popularity, like the actual product in the real world, and nicotine usage charts and all this. And I'm like, oh, well, this is curious, right? And then they got hit with some sort of cease and desist by the actual company, and the token went to fucking zero. And then to his credit, and I found this really good, and just as a nice reality check, he quote retweeted himself, being like, next time I'm writing a thread about meme coins, I'll try not to like round trip a 6-figure P&L or something. And I'm like, that is very well, first of all, respect, right? Most people just bury their calls. That's just straight up how it happens. You shill 50 dog shit meme coins. You keep hammering the ones that are going up and use them to clout collect, and then the majority which end up going to shit and going to zero, or once they do, you kind of just pretend it never happened. Some people just even straight up delete their tweets. So seeing that type of thing, going from one extreme to the other, and the sort of self-awareness, I thought that was quite good.
Yeah, I mean, gotta pay respects when they do. I mean, I probably shouldn't be writing pages about meme coins in the first place, but at least if you do, taking ownership goes a long way.
Yeah, it's a very valuable lesson in general. Also, I didn't think like I have the heart and risk appetite to be able to round trip massive P&Ls. And I think that's reflected in my trading style as well, being pretty fucking conservative, very greedy with entries, etc. I used to be a lot more aggressive in the past. But for me, what would always set off a tilt streak wasn't actually like a losing streak per se. It was actually big round trips in P&L, sort of 2018, 2019, maybe even early 2020. That type of thing actually tilted me more than straight up losing streaks. And so I had to basically fix that. And I think that's an under sort of stated part of trading, that you need to, at least to some extent, adjust your trading style in a way that suits your psychology and kind of what sets you off and what you're comfortable and uncomfortable with. Like if you're super patient, you don't get caught up in the noise, you're not like a micromanager, overmanager person in general, then swing trading might actually be pretty good for you because it doesn't require like a radical shift in character, right? Whereas if you're that type of person and then you're forcing yourself to trade on super low time frames where every single move matters, that's a trading strategy, even if it's just as valid. It'll sort of produce worse results because it's less concomitant with your actual personality. And so for me, knowing that these sort of huge round trips kind of fucked in my head, I essentially got rid of them. So it's one of those, I don't know if even if you agree, but I think if you know yourself quite well, I don't think there's any harm in trying to curate a trading style that at least leans into your strengths and avoids the things that set you off or fuck with your head.
Yeah, I think avoiding stress as much as you can is basically like the way to do it in that regard. Like if you take a bunch of low time frame positions and you just kind of losing your mind over it and it stresses you the fuck out, and then you take like midterm or long term positions and you just kind of chill, then it's pretty clear what you're more in tune with and what's kind of more comfortable for you. And I think just in general, like also health wise, if you constantly stress about something, it's not going to do you any good. It's a little bit part of the job, but it's also kind of like you said, it depends person to person what kind of fucks with you more. Some people are really good at just kind of holding a position, and they would get stressed if they constantly have to get in and out. And some people completely and utterly like just cannot hold the position because it stresses them too much and they need to jump in and out and just take like the few momentum boosts that you have in that chart or on that pair or whatever. And this is why, and I 100% agree with you there, it's why I say like you cannot really realistically copy my trading style because everyone's a little bit different.
For sure.
And what fits me doesn't necessarily fit the person that's watching. This is why I think the logic is much more important than what we're actually like the way we're actually trading, right? Like I give like my logic, and then someone can take that logic and kind of transform it into something that works with whatever the fuck they're doing. And if I'm just like, hey, this is the trade I'm taking, and that's it, then you can copy trade that trade, but it's not necessarily gonna do you any good in the long run, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And even in terms of like content utility, the analysis gets stale after a week in most cases, maybe a month or a couple of months if it's a really high time frame swing. But like the principles, the logic, the lived experience, I think that kind of stuff has a lot more longevity. Like I always try to make these shows such that if people, God forbid, watch them as a catalog from,
Oh no.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. Like weeks and months down the line, it's not just
imagine.
Yeah, no, it takes a really. I mean, I know it sounds awful and very self-aggrandizing. I don't expect anyone to do that, but that's how I learned a lot of trading stuff. I'd literally go through Trader Dante tweets back to like 2008, 10, 6, whatever the earliest date was, where he would just literally call out levels on Twitter. And I would go back and add those levels to my fucking Euro USD charts to figure out why they were there in the first place, that served a really formative part of teaching me how to trade. And that's a pretty sort of niche example. But I think in general, there's just a lot more value in trying to do things that survive the test of 1 week or 1 month or 5 tests of support if you're fudding it, I just think that's quite useful. So I don't like skew the content to try to always make it this fucking ephemeral, atemporal wisdom type of nonsense. But I think as long as we can sprinkle in a couple of things from 7+ years of experience and whatever else, that if God forbid someone chooses to kind of go through the old videos, there may be something there for them that's not immediately sort of price and market sensitive only,
Yeah, well said.
Right.
But imagine how mentally ill you would have to be to watch this for like 8 hours in a day. Like you're just like, oh, I haven't watched my 4 casual Fridays today.
4 casual Fridays.
Or like casual Thursdays or whatever the fuck day we have in the week.
But hey, if that's you, shout out, leave us a
Oh
comment,
yeah, much love.
and then
Much
go to an
love.
asylum. Solana on the weekly, Don. It kind of feels a bit like ETH insofar as I know you take offense at that comment because in your world they're radically different.
Oh
But
no, they're not radically different. One is just a little bit more shitty than the other one, and you guys can choose whichever you think is a little bit more
that's
shitty.
so helpful. I think the reason I think there's some similarity is that 135 weekly level that we spoke about is kind of like 3K on ETH.
Yep.
Where it's the nearest level, it's a pretty good level, but it's somewhat uncomfortable because we've sort of tapped it for 2 weeks and it's done fuck all, and we're still hovering there, and you're going back and forth, being like, is this weakness? What about the proximity to invalidation? So on and so forth. And you're not getting any candle close resolution for the time being, at the very least. I think if you look on the daily, that's developed in a not so ideal way because it made a higher high close through 150, but then that turned into a failed breakout on yesterday's close.
It's actually the same one as ETH on the daily. Like ETH did the exact
Oh
same
yeah, yeah,
thing.
you're right. You're right. It did absolutely.
Yeah, not great, I would say. Like the weekly looks a little bit better to me than the ETH weekly does, just because ETH just went to this support like in March already, where Sol was still quite strong. But yeah, it's very similar to ETH, and it's not looking too strong, considering that if it breaks the support, where the fuck does it go? And I think the next support that you have is $100 ish, and I mean that's not too far away. Like the crazy part, like 100 isn't too far away, just looking on the chart. But when you realize that we're trading at 145 and 100 would be quite far away, just in portfolio value of someone that holds ETH
Oh, for sure.
or like Solana, it's quite brutal.
Yeah. And I think there's almost an NFT-esque going on, sort of NFT-esque effect going on with Solana. Like if you're in the meme coin trenches and you're sort of swapping back and forth and so on and so forth, especially if your meme coin trading is going badly, then you kind of get doubly fucked, right? Because you're losing your Solana, but then your Solana's also losing value if shit continues to go down. And then if you lose track of what the actual USD value of your so-called portfolio is, that can be a sort of an unwelcome surprise at times. It reminds me of when NFT mania was in full swing and everyone just kind of denominated their portfolio and, you know, oh, this is the floor price, it hasn't moved, etc. Meanwhile, ETH was fucking halved, you know? It's like, well, no one. He's like, oh, the floor price hasn't moved. It's like, I have bad news for you.
Yep.
But yeah, technically, I think it's pretty unambiguous. 130. I mean, it's very similar to ETH. 135 is the 3K essentially equivalent. Yep. If you get really good entries there, then you can be a bit greedy if you think the market's going to turn around as a whole, purely based on proximity to invalidation. See if it gives you something. Otherwise, if you know, we've spent quite a bit of time here, and I wouldn't want anything other than greedy entries. Personally, around the 135 thing, but I think you 100 is definitely a trade if it goes there in one form.
Oh yeah,
that's like that's a fantastic, even close to 100. I think would start being really, really good. But for the time being, the most recent signal is the daily failed breakout through 152, which sucks. I think if you close back above that, because we've already had a failed breakout above that level, that might be a nice, okay, I was wrong type of inflection point. But
at
otherwise,
least an argument for
at least an argument,
trade,
yeah, because you don't have an argument right now, not really. Because
No,
the two bullish arguments would be the 150 failed breakout has been invalidated, I'm long, and the other one would be we're at weekly support and the proximity to invalidation is very high. Like both of those I can stomach, even if it ends up losing money, right? You wouldn't sort of stay awake at night for those types of trades or have massive regrets. But right here in the middle, where it hasn't reached the extremities of weekly support, but it just failed the breakout. This is peak sort of low conviction, diddle in the middle type of zone. So I think waiting for either of those would be a lot more sensible.
Yeah, and especially just looking at the context, this shit went from like what, like $10, like below $10 to fucking 250 almost.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, oh yeah, let me just buy the first time it actually broke down with like a shitty setup. I think at that point you want to wait at least for the daily, like you said, kind of invalidate that false breakout to the upside by just going back up there, and then we can have a talk. But until then,
we can have a talk like a fucking disappointed parent, Don. Whiff is the last one, and again, it's trading so technically well. like that daily range high that you pointed out at around, I mean, the cluster top came in at 320. There's also the 316 level, whatever, just like really nice retest
Oh,
of
look
that.
at that beauty. Yeah.
It trades so well. I mean, look at the 4 hour. These charts are a godsend, to be honest. But I don't think the argument is different this week than from when we previously discussed with, which is to say that your earliest signal on strength to be bullish is a daily close above 320. You got anything but yesterday.
Got the opposite, yeah.
Yeah. And then on the other side of that, if you're making proximity to invalidation based arguments, it's got to be around $2.20, which we've also kind of wicked and tested a bunch. So again, this is a pretty good example of like sort of logic on these types of moves. It's like if you have a signal for what would, like if you're wrong about the market being weak, you have a very clear inflection point to flip. If you don't get that signal, then you do nothing in the middle and then wait for another extremity / proximity to invalidation. But like in general, selling immediately after a failed breakdown is like a rough idea. Buying immediately after a failed breakout is a bad idea. You kind of want to let those trades either invalidate or unfold, and I think the better trades tend to happen off the back of those.
Well said. Agreed.
There you go. My watch list doesn't have anything else on it, Don. That's all I had for this pseudo casual Friday episode. What about you?
I mean, my watch list is ancient, so
put that shit in a museum for real.
Yep, for real. No, it's just like when you go outside of the meme coins, right? The market, like the altcoin landscape, looks very, very, very bad. Like we've been talking about like bonk whiff or whatever. I'm just throw on like let me see if I can find something that might be like ADA. We talked about ADA earlier, or like I did. Look at ADA on like ADA Bitcoin on the weekly time frame. That's the general landscape if you're not trading the meme coins, if you're not trading the hot shit, and that's quite brutal. Like that's just absolutely fucking disgusting when you look at it. Downtrend from basically last bull market all the way to where we are now, down only. And even if you look on the USD pair, very much struggling, barely up from the lows. And yeah, that's been the altcoin picture. Like unless you've been trading the meme coins, you've been taking massive losses. And I think there's a chance that just kind of leads to a full-blown capitulation on a lot of these coins. And then maybe there's going to be some good entries for decent coins. ADA is not necessarily one where I would be fishing, but other coins that at least have a little bit of promise have been not trading too dissimilar to what ADA has been doing.
Yeah, I think that's also the cause of a lot of dispersion as far as where we are in the cycle when it comes to market commentary as a whole.
Oh yeah, some people haven't even had any upside.
I know, exactly. So like if you picked correctly or even had some big winners, like you rode some amount of Solana ecosystem, some of these newer altcoins, meme coins, etc., you must be feeling like, holy shit, like I've changed my life and now all these tourists are piling in and maybe it's a bit scary and I'm going to risk off and it's been a crazy 6 to 12 months, right? Yeah. But if you're shit at this, then you're like, I'm more or less break even if I'm lucky, maybe not after fees. But at least BTC is now setting a new all-time high, and now this is when I get rich, you know?
Yeah.
And that's something, the dispersion is shocking, and it's kind of caused a certain amount of divergence when it comes to market participants, because you either feel like it's late cycle, you never should have made this much money in the first place, holy shit, what's going on? Whereas if you picked incorrectly, you're like, you know, the party's just getting started, right? Because I've made no fucking money.
Oh, it's so brutal, and it's scary too because the good traders and the people that have the
ducks in order.
the ducks in order, like the feel of the pulse of the market. They've been making an absolute killing, and the people that don't, they've been getting completely fucked, and obviously don't want to risk off now that they've been getting completely fucked. So like it's a little bit of a weird place,
very weird
cyclically, because usually when we have these big bull runs, everyone is kind of winning. This time around, I would say that's not necessarily the case.
I completely agree, especially because it feels like, I mean, BTC just dominated the vast majority of this, and none of these fucking people own any BTC.
I mean, that has always been the case, right?
Like, the case.
Like as if an ADA holder is going to hold any Bitcoin. Like it doesn't really fit together well.
You and ADA, I swear to God.
I just it's the coin of the day that I'm shit talking.
I see. It's not AVAX anymore, is it?
No. I can do AVAX next week again.
I'm sure you can. We've got all of tomorrow as well. I think thematically for altcoins, one general takeaway is that to some extent you're beholden to the next BTC volatility expansion, given how long we've been going. If you get a good entry on some of these not dogshit ones that have had reclaims, that have had failed breakdowns, etc., you can afford the luxury to either A, see how that plays out, or at the very worst, B, kind of give yourself a bailout if you're wrong about BTC breaking the range low. And obviously, if you're bullish and think that this is just like a chop period and 60k is going to hold and Don is going to FUD it again tomorrow and be wrong again tomorrow, and then we all talk him in the comments before it goes to all-time high because of 1 trillion ETF inflows. If that's your view, then it's kind of a similar argument. Just look at the strong alts and expect them to more or less keep being strong and for those reclaim structures to continue. So do you think that's a fair summary?
That is a fair summary, yeah.
Great. Well, that's all from us this week. Before you click off, leave a like on this video. Sounds like trite nonsense, but we very much appreciate it. It makes a difference. Subscribe to the channel. We're almost caught up to BTC. It'd be better for all of our portfolios if the channel caught up to BTC, as opposed to BTC catching down to our channel. Thank you to Woo for supporting the show. We've got some more news about some new features tomorrow, so be sure to watch tomorrow's episode. And if you're interested in BTC FUD at the Pico bottom commentary, Don will have all of that and more in probably around 24 hours. So that's all from us, and we'll see you a bit later.
Bye.